Good morning everyone. Today I'm going to discuss the birth of Rizal. In chapter 3, Rizal's life, family, childhood, and early education in 1861 to 1877. The night of Rizal's birth. On June 19, 1861, Wednesday night, the seventh child and second son of Doña Teodora and Francisco Mercado, Jose Rizal was born in the town of Calamba, Laguna. During delivery, Doña Teodora almost died because of Jose's big head. I was born in Calamba, Laguna Province, Philippines on 19 June 1861. Between 11 and 12 midnight, a few days before full moon, it was a Wednesday and my coming out in the Vale of Tears would have cost my mother and her life had she not vowed to the Virgin of Antipolo to take me to her sanctuary by the way of pilgrimage. Rizal recounted in his memoir. Jose Rizal had many beautiful memories of childhood in his native town. He grew up in a happy home, ruled by good parents, bubbling with joy and sanctified by God's blessing. Trivia about his birthplace. His natal town in Calamba, so named after a big native jar, was a fitting cradle for a hero. The house he grew up in as well, situated in Calamba, right next to the church at the edge of the plaza. Jose Protasio Rizal Mercado y Alonso Rionda was born on June 19, 1861, to Francisco Mercado Rizal y Alejandro and Teodora Alonso y Quintos. He was born a small child, a physical stature for which he was known for his entire life. His sisters would say Jose was a very small child. About Rizal's birthplace. Jose Rizal was born 149 years ago in La Laguna, as it was called then. He was born in Calamba from the words Kalan, Banga, which means jar. Nick Joaquin in his biography Rizal in Saga. He will describe Rizal's boyhood town. The town he knew was of stone and red tile. 3 streets not quite parallel, running from west to east and converging on the shores of Laguna de Bai, so that the original shape of the town was long acute triangle. The main street was Calle Rizal, where stood the church, the Casa del Gobierno, the Casa de Hacienda, the plaza, and the market. The population was around 5,000 in Rizal's time, and Calamba was then one of the great rice towns.
Good morning, Mom. Good morning, classmates. So I am Malik Medrano Ancheta, and for today, I will be discussing Rizal's childhood years in Calamba. Because this time Rizal was born, and he is born as the seventh child of Francisco Mercado Rizal and Teodora Alonso y Quintos. On the 22nd of September 1862, the parochial church of Calamba and the canonical books, including the book in which Rizal's baptismal records were entered, were burned. So dito sa parochial church of Calamba, dito na-baptize si Rizal by the parish priest Father Rufino Colantes and his godfather Father Pedro Casanas. But noong September 22, 1862, yung church na ito is pinasok at saka sinunog. Kasamang nasunog yung baptismal records kung saan nandun yung records ni Rizal. In 1864 to 1865, barely 3 years old, Rizal learned the alphabet from his mother. So basically, sinasabi dito yung first teacher ni Rizal is his mother. And at the age of 3, alam na ni Rizal yung alphabets kasi tinuruan siya ng kanyang mother. And when he was 4 years old, his sister Concepcion, the 8th child in Rizal family, died at the age of 3. So yung occasion naman ito, dito na remember ni Rizal yung first time niya magkaroon ng yung totoong luha, yung pag-iyak niya. In 1865 to 1867, so si Rizal is under or nasa 4 to 6 years old na this time. And during this time, his mother taught him how to read and write. And his father hired a classmate by name of Leon Monroy, kung saan si Leon Monroy yung nagturo kay Rizal ng rudiments or yung mga first principle ng Latin. So bago namatay si Leon Monroy, mga 5 months din niyang tinuruan si Rizal bago siya pumanaw. And about this time, 2 of his mother's cousin frequented Calamba. Si Uncle Manuel Alberto at Uncle Gregorio niya ay bumisita sa Calamba. Uncle Manuel Alberto taught the latter love for the open air and developed in him a great admiration for the beauty of nature. Dahil si uncle niya na Manuel Alberto is concerned sa frail body ni Rizal or sa weak body ni Rizal, concerned siya sa physical development ni Rizal, tinuro niya sa kanya yung latter love kung saan lumabas-labas din siya to see the nature or see the beauty of the world. And si Uncle Gregorio naman, at the age of 4 to 6, si Rizal, inadvisean niya na, sabi ni Uncle Gregorio na, work hard and perform every task very carefully. Learn to be swift as well as thorough. Be independent in thinking and make visual pictures of everything. In the 6th of June 1868, Rizal made the pilgrimage to Antipolo with his father to fulfill the vow made by his mother. So, yung vow na ito is ginawa ng mother niya kasi noong pinapanganak niya si Rizal is nagkakaroon siya ng difficulty in giving birth to him. Kaya niya nagawa yung vow na ito na mapupunta yung anak niya sa pilgrimage kapag nag-survive siya at yung anak niya sa pag-give birth niya. And then noong June 6, 1868, finulfill na ni yung papa ni Rizal at ni Rizal yung vow ng mother niya na pumunta sila sa famous mountain shrine of Our Lady of Peace and Good Voyage sa Antipolo. And after nila pagpunta sa pilgrimage sa Antipolo is nagproceed sila sa Manila to visit his sister Saturnina, who was at the time studying in the La Conserja College in Santa Ana. So in 1869, Rizal wrote his first poem entitled Sa Aking Mga Kababata at the age of 8. And yung poem na ito is written in Tagalog because of its theme na love of one's language.
Good morning, everyone. I am Janelle Vasconcillo, the third reporter of Chapter 3. And I will be discussing the early education of Dr. Jose Rizal in Calamba and Binyan. So, let's start. Rizal has his early education in Calamba and Binyan. It was a typical schooling that a son of an illustrator family received during his time, characterized by the 4 R's: reading, writing, arithmetic, and religion. Instruction was rigid and strict. Knowledge was forced into the minds of the pupils by means of the tedious memory method aided by the teacher's whip, which means that the teachers before were so strict when it comes to education. Despite the defects of the Spanish system of elementary education, Rizal was able to acquire the necessary instruction preparatory for college work in Manila. It may be said that Rizal, who was born a physical weakling, rose to become an intellectual giant not because of, but rather in spite of. The outmoded and backward system of instruction obtaining in the Philippines during the last decades of Spanish regime. So now, let's proceed to the Dr. Jose Rizal's first teacher. The first teacher of Jose Rizal was his mother, Teodora Alonso Realonda. She was the best-known mother, who was a remarkable woman of good character and fine culture. On her lap, he learned at the age of 3 the alphabet and the prayers. My mother, wrote Rizal in his student memoirs, taught me how to read and to say haltingly the humble prayers which I raise fervently to God. So his mother taught him on how to read, not just read, but also on how to pray. As tutor, Doña Teodora was patient, conscientious, and understanding. It was she who first discovered that her son had a talent for poetry. Accordingly, she encouraged him to write poems, to lighten the monotony of memorizing the ABCs and to stimulate her son's imagination. She related many stories. As Jose Rizal grew older, his parents employed private tutors to give him lessons at home. The first tutor was Maestro Celestino, and the second is Maestro Lucas Padua. Later on, an old man, Leon Monroy, a former classmate of Rizal's father, became the Rizal's tutor. This old teacher lived at Rizal's home and instructed Jose in Spanish and Latin. Unfortunately, Leon Monroy died and he did not live long. He died 5 months later, so after Monroy's death, Rizal's parents decided to send Jose Rizal, or their gifted son, in a private school in Binyan. So Jose Rizal goes to Binyan. One Sunday afternoon in June 1869, Jose, after kissing the hands of his parents and a tearful parting from his sister, Jose left Calamba for Binyan. He was accompanied by his older brother, Pasiano, who acted as his second father. The two brothers rode in a carromata, reaching their destination after 1.5 hours drive. They proceeded to their aunt's house, where Jose was to lodge. It was almost night when they arrived, and the moon was about to rise. That same night, Jose, with his cousin named Leandro, went sightseeing in the town. Instead of enjoying the sights, Jose became depressed because of homesickness. In the moonlight, he recounted, "I remembered my hometown, my idolized mother, and my solicitous sisters. Oh, how sweet to me was Calamba, my own town, in spite of the fact that was not as wealthy as Binyan." So here it goes, the first day in Binyan School. The first day of Jose Rizal in Binyan School. The next morning, Monday, Pasiano brought his younger brother to the school of Maestro Justiniano Aquino Cruz. The school was in the house of the teacher, which was a small nipa hut about 30 meters from the home of Jose's aunt. Pasiano knew the teacher quite well because he had been a pupil under him before. He introduced Jose to the teacher, after which he departed to return to Calamba. Immediately, Jose was assigned his seat in the class. The teacher asked him, "Do you know Spanish?" "A little, sir," he replied, the Calamba lad. "Do you know Latin?" "A little, sir." The boys in the class, especially Pedro, the teacher's son, laughed at Jose's answers. The teacher sharply stopped all noises and began the lesson of the day. Jose challenged Pedro to a fight. The latter readily accepted, thinking that he could easily beat the Calamba boy, which is Jose Rizal, who was smaller and younger. The two boys wrestled furiously in the classroom, much to the glee of their classmates. Jose, having learned the art of wrestling from his athletic Tío Manuel, Jose defeated the bigger boy, which is Pedro. For this feat, he became popular among his classmates. After the class in the afternoon, a classmate named Andres Salandanan challenged him to an arm wrestling match. They went to a sidewalk of a house and wrestled with their arms. Jose, having the weaker arm, lost and nearly cracked his head on the sidewalk. In succeeding days, he had other fights with the boys of Binyan. He was not quarrelsome by nature, but he never ran away from a fight. Best student in school. In academic studies, Jose beat all Binyan boys. He surpassed them all in Spanish, Latin, and other subjects. Some of his older classmates were jealous of his intellectual superiority. They weakly squealed to the teacher whenever Jose had a fight outside the school, and even told lies to discredit him before the teacher's eyes. Consequently, the teacher had to punish Jose. Early schooling in Binyan. Jose had a vivid imagination and a very keen sense of observation. At the age of 7, he traveled with his father for the first time to Manila, thence to Antipolo, to fulfill the promise of a pilgrimage made by his mother at the time of his birth. They embarked in a casco, a very ponderous vessel commonly used in the Philippines. It was the first trip of the lake that Jose could recollect. When they proceeded to Antipolo, he experienced the sweetest emotions upon seeing the gay banks of the Pasig and the towns of Cainta and Taytay. In Antipolo he prayed, kneeling before the image of the Virgin of Peace and Good Voyage, of whom he would later sing in elegant verses. Then he saw Manila, the great metropolis, with its Chinese stores and European bazaars, and visited his elder sister Saturnina in Santa Ana, who was a boarding student in the Concordia College. So, for the last part is painting lessons in Binyan. So, near the school was the house of an old painter named Juanco. Juanco is a father-in-law of a school teacher, and Jose Rizal loved painting and drawing. So he always visited the studio of Juanco. And Juanco also gave him free lessons in drawing and painting, because he really impressed by the artistic talent of Jose Rizal. So that's where he learned and get famous because of his talent in painting and drawing. So that's all for my assigned topic. And for my learnings, I have learned a lot, like how difficult to have a good education before. I noticed that Jose Rizal was blessed to have private tutors because his family was rich. So I realized, how can people have a good education when they don't have enough money to hire private tutors before? So it's difficult to have an education when you don't have money. So that's all, and thank you.
Good day everyone, I'm Chris Angeli Bibat, and today we will be looking the life of Jose Rizal as an Atenean. Ateneo Municipal. Ateneo Municipal was established in 1859 by the Jesuit order located in Intramuros. Ateneo. Ateneo, formerly known as Escuela Pia, a school for poor boys established by the government in 1817. The government placed it in the supervision of Jesuits. The name of the school became Ateneo Municipal and later became the Ateneo de Manila. And the education system in Ateneo Municipal de Manila is equivalent now to our high school. And according to Rafael Palma, Jesuits were considered as the best educators of Spain and perhaps of Europe in 19th century. So Rizal studied at Ateneo for 5 years, from 1872 to 1877. So here's the old picture of Ateneo Municipal and their logo. And the Ateneo de Manila University today. June 1872, Jose Rizal was sent to Manila to study in Ateneo. But originally, sa Kolehiyo de San Juan de Letran sana siya mag-aaral, kung saan napasa niya rin yung entrance exam niya. Pero later on, his father changed his mind and decided to send him to Ateneo Municipal instead. So here's the thing. Father Margin Fernando, who was the school registrar, refused to admit Jose Rizal for 2 reasons. Number 1, he was late for registration. And number 2, he failed the physical exam. He was so sickly and undersized for his age. But through the help of Manuel Ceres Burgos, kung saan siya yung parang naging backer ni Jose Rizal na nephew of Father Burgos, he was accepted in Ateneo. So since Mercado, the first surname of the family, had come under suspicion of the Spanish authorities because it was the name used by Pasiano, which is the brother of Rizal, when he was studying and working under Father Burgos, and whose has led Jose adopted the second surname Rizal. Rizal was an externo, or a living out student. He lived in Caraballo Street in Santa Cruz, outside of the walled city, which was 25 minutes away from his school, in a house owned by a certain Titay, an old married woman who has a debt of 300 pesos on the Mercado family. The educational system of Jesuits. So, how the Ateneo way back conducted classes. So, Jesuits education compromises of number 1, Mass every morning, so this is the Catholic upbringing of Jose Rizal. And then, prayer before and after classes. And the focus of physical culture, humanities, and scientific studies. And they give emphasis to rigid discipline, character building, and the religious instruction. They also encourage competition among the students. The classes is divided into 2 groups. Number 1, the Roman Empire, consisting of internos or border. Number 2, the Carthaginian Empire, composed of externos, non-borders. So, next is yung mga rankings of students before sa Ateneo. Emperor for best student, Tribune for second best, Decurion for third best, Centurion for fourth best, and Standard Bearer for fifth best. Within the empire, the students vote for position by challenging the ones holding the ranks to answer questions based on the day lesson. And this kind of ranking promotes competition in the class that way the Atenean was built or their students. Now, let's look into the performance of Jose Rizal while was in Ateneo in 1872 to 1873. He has 3 subjects, Latin, Spanish, and Greek. All his grades was excellent. Father Jose Beck. So, Father Jose Beck is Rizal's first professor in Ateneo, whom he described as a tall, thin man with a body slightly bent forward, a harried walk, an ascetic face, severe and inspired, small deep sun-skinned eyes, a sharp nose that was almost Greek, and thin lips forming an arc whose ends fell forward the chin. He was the brightest pupil in the class and he received a prize. And he said, "How pleased I was when I won the first place, a religious picture." So, aside from school, may private lesson pa si Rizal sa Santa Isabel College during noon recess to improve his Spanish. Kasi nga, lower or subpar pa yung Spanish niya, kaya kailangan niyang mag-improve. And he paid 3 pesos for those extra Spanish lessons. And being a newcomer, Rizal was placed at the bottom of the class. As an externo, he was placed to the Carthaginians, occupying the end of the line. Pero dahil matalino si Rizal, at the end of the month, Rizal became the emperor of the class. On the second half of his first year, Jose did not try studying as hard as the previous semester because he resented some remarks of his professor. Yet, he placed second at the end of the year and his grades remained excellent. At the end of the school year in March 1873, Rizal returned to Calamba for summer vacation. And lastly, when the summer vacation ended, Rizal returned to Manila for his second year term in Ateneo. This time, he boarded inside Intramuros at number 6 Magallanes Street. His landlady was old widow named Doña Pipay. Second year of Rizal at Ateneo, year 1873 to 1874. And at the end of the school year, Rizal received excellent grades in all subjects, which are Spanish, Greek, and world geography. And also, he received a gold medal. And during this year, he became a voracious reader. He got interested in reading romantic novels, love story, and romantic tales, such as The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexander Dumas, the first favorite novel of Rizal which made a deep impression on him. Universal History by Cesar Canto. Rizal persuaded his father to buy him this set of historical work that was a great aid in his studies. And The Travels in the Philippines by Dr. Fyodor Hagor, a German scientist traveler who was visited in the Philippines in year 1859 to 1860. So, before Rizal went to study in Ateneo, his mother, Chodora Alonso, was arrested. And during his second year, Rizal visited again his mother and entertained her with his Ateneo stories. And Doña Chodora told him about her dream the previous night. Rizal interpreted it as a sign that she would be released from a prison in 3 months' time. And then, sabi nga ni Rizal na makakalaya ka nanay. So, may pagkaka-prophetic si Rizal. And it became true. So, her mom is proud na proud sa kanya anak kasi nga, parang may pagka-prophetic tendency yung anak niya. Next, in third year, year 1874 to 1875. Rizal grades remained excellent in all subjects, but he won only one medal, in Latin. He failed to win the medal in Spanish because his spoken Spanish was not fluent, sonorous, and was beaten by a Spaniard who could naturally speak fluently with the right accentuation. And at the end of the school year, March 1875, Rizal returned to Calamba for the summer vacation. He himself was not impressed by his scholastic work. In 1875 to 1876, during his fourth year, in June 16, 1875, Rizal became an interno in the Ateneo. And Rizal described Padre Francisco de Paulo Sanchez as a great educator and scholar, one of Rizal's professors who inspired him to study harder and to write poetry. And also, Rizal described this Jesuit professor as a model of uprightness, earnestness, and love for the advancement of his pupils. Rizal topped all his classmates in all subjects and won 5 medals at the end of the school term. And during his fourth year, he has 3 subjects: rhetoric and poetry, French, and geometry. All his grades were excellent. In 1876 to 1877, during his 5th year, he is considered as the pride of Jesuits. Rizal became successful in Ateneo. He got the highest grade in all subjects: philosophy, physics, biology, chemistry, and language. And also, he graduated as sobresaliente or outstanding, the highest recognition in Ateneo. March 23, 1877, where he was 16 years old, received from his alma mater Ateneo Municipal the degree of Bachelor of Arts with highest honors. Rizal studied painting under the famous Spanish painter Agustin Zaez and sculpture under Romualdo de Jesus, noted Filipino sculptor. And also, Rizal carved an image of the Virgin Mary on the pieces of batikulong, a Philippine hardwood, using his pocket knife. So, si Father Leonard naman, he was impressed by Rizal's sculptural talent, and he requested him to carve for him an image of Sacred Heart of Jesus. Poems of Rizal written at Ateneo. So, yung mother nga ni Jose Rizal na si Doña Chodora ang nakadiscover na poetic genius si Rizal. Pero si Father Sanchez ang nag-inspired sa kanya to make full use of his God-given gift in writing. And actually, there are a lot of poems that Rizal written during his time in Ateneo Municipal. Pero konti lang yung mga in-include kong mga poems niya. So, mi primera inspiración or my first inspiration in English. And year 1874 when Rizal wrote this, Rizal wrote it before he was 14 years old, and it is dedicated to his mother. And in year 1875, Father Sanchez inspired him to write more poems such as Felicitación and El Combate. And also, in 1876, Rizal wrote poems on various topics: religion, education, childhood memories, and war. They were as follows: Alianza en tema entre la religión y la buena educación. And in this poem, Rizal showed the importance of religion in education. And the another one is Por la educación recibe Lostre la Parcha. And in this poem, Rizal believed in the significant role which education plays in the progress and welfare of a nation. And lastly, in 1877, Rizal wrote more poems. It was his last year in Ateneo. Among the poems written that year were A Farewell Dialogue of the Students. This was the last poem written by Rizal in Ateneo, and it is a poignant poem of farewell to his classmate. And second is A la Virgen Maria, or To the Virgin Mary. And it is another religious poem which doesn't have exact date when it was written.
First romance of Rizal. Jose Rizal was only 16 years old when he first fell in love. And it was with Sigonda Katigbak, a 14 years old Batangueña girl from Lipa, Batangas. Rizal was his puppy love. In Rizal's own words, she was rather short, with eyes that were eloquent and ardent at times, and languid at others, rosy-cheeked with an enchanting and provocative smile that revealed very beautiful teeth and the air of a sylph. Her entire self diffused a mysterious charm. She was the sister of Rizal's friend Mariano Katigbak, close friend of Rizal's sister Olympia Rizal. Rizal went to Trozo, Manila one day to visit his grandmother, and Mariano Katigbak accompanied him. Mariano's family were close friend of Rizal's grandmother. At pagdating nila sa Lipa, naroon ang kapatid ni Mariano na si Segunda sa bahay ng kanyang lola, kasama ang iba pang mga bisita. At doon sila unang nagkita. At agad na naakit si Rizal kay Segunda. Sa La Concordia College, Manila, nag-aral si Segunda at doon rin nag-aral ang tatlong kapatid ni Rizal. Nakakapunta si Rizal doon dahil madalas na dumadalaw sa mga kapatid. Kaya naging malapit siya kay Segunda. At si Segunda nga daw ang nanligaw kay Rizal bago ito na in love sa kanya. Unfortunately, his first love was engaged to be married to a townmate Manuel Luz. Si Rizal at Segunda ay meron silang pagmamahalan sa isa't isa. At ito rin ang first heartbreak ni Rizal because he had no experience. And Rizal decided to back away and did not propose. And the love of Rizal and Segunda was indeed a love at first sight. Dumating din ang Disyembre at si Rizal ang unang umuwi sa Calamba. At si Segunda naman ay pauwi sa Lipa nang salubungin ni Rizal sa Binyan, Laguna, ang karwahe ni Segunda at ang kanyang kapatid. And it was the last time they talked to each other was on Thursday in December 1877, when the Christmas vacation was about to begin. Rizal said, while recording his first romance 3 years later, ended an early hour, my first love. My virgin heart will always mourn the reckless step it took on the flower deck abase. My illusions will return, yes, but indifferent and certain ready for the first betrayal on the path of love.